Hello, everyone. Today we're going to go over Chapter 6. Chapter 6 covers the topic of language, okay? If you look at the title slide from here, you can see that language is a barrier or it could be a bridge. What basically that means is it can bring people together, it can unite them, or it can lead people to go apart, okay? If you look at some of the greatest speakers in our society, they use language to bring people together, to unify them. Martin Luther King Jr. was a good example. He brought people to rise up, to unite, to fight for equal rights. So this is an example of something good. Unfortunately, if you want to look at an example of something bad, all you got to do is look at Adolf Hitler. His speeches were full of hate, and they were used to do evil things in life, okay? So you can see that language is very, very, very powerful. The thing you got to know, though, is that language is symbolic. That's all it is. It is a symbol. Each word is a symbol for the object, person, or whatever it is. If you look in front of you, you have a table. There's no connection between the word and the table. It just means the word was assigned to it. A long time ago, when they were coming up with words in English for things, they said we will call that a table, and people agreed in society, so therefore it's called a table. There is no connection between the object and the word. It has just been assigned. Okay? So remember, symbolic language allows for communication or it can lead to breakdowns. When you do not know the language, it does cause issues. Better yet, remember, every culture, every country will have different symbols for different things. This will lead to breakdowns and stuff like that, okay? Now, this brings up the topic of sign language. Remember, sign language is symbolic. Every hand movement, every hand gesture, it is a symbol for an object or a word or a phrase. Therefore, it is an official language, okay? But every language in the country, in the world, everywhere we go, will have three rules. The first one is semantic rules. This is how we understand the meanings of the words. They get their meaning from the usage, okay? One thing is bicycles. Bicycles are used for riding. Well, if you're an exercise person, then you see it more as an exercise equipment. But what if you live somewhere where you don't have a car? Then your bicycle is now your only forms of transportation. So you see how the usage of the object changes? Right now, I will tell you extra credit. If you can email me the answer to this question, what do you think is currency in prison? First, send me the answer you think it is. Then, research and send me the correct answer. Okay? So, all of you should be sending me two answers, okay? For 10 points by the end of this module, and you will get it. Please email me using the Canvas email system. What do you think is the currency for prisons now? Okay? Remember, cigarettes was the currency. You can buy and sell people. That's not true anymore. What is it now? So, semantic rules. Equivocation. Remember, many different words have many different acceptable meanings. Words have many acceptable meanings. Slang. This is what makes English so very hard to learn for those of you who are not native to English. It's stuff like this. Relative words. They gain their words through comparison. What is fast? What is slow? What is tall? What is short? Static evaluation is just that. Those of you who are old school like me, the television, the antenna wasn't working good, so it was very staticky. It was not a clear picture. That's what this means. It's when you say something to enhance the other thing. I remember I had a friend who tried to set me up with one of her friends. She told him, "Oh, Simon has an appetite for life." And I was like, "You told her I was fat." She was like, "No, that's not what I meant." And I was like, "Yes, that's what you mean." It's when you say things like, "Oh, he's just different. Once you get to know him, it'll be better." It's because they're saying you're a jerk and they have to get used to your behavior. Okay? "Oh, he's just very creative. He's weirdo." He marches to a different beat of a drum. He's a weirdo. We do these things to enhance their appeal. It is to deceive. My first car that I ever owned was a Ford Tempo, 1984, which tells you how old I am. But anyway, it was 10 years old. Every door had a different color. Even the hood had a different color. So my car had a lot of personality. That is what a static evaluation is. Remember, you want to avoid abstract language. This is very vague. You want to use behavioral language because this is more specific. This is how you can get people to change their behavior. The second rule is syntactic rules. This is how we govern grammar. This is a correct way to speak and the correct way to write. Alright? So I don't say I and Pam are going to the store. Pam and I are going to the store. So it's the correct way to speak. May I have a glass of water? It's the correct way to write sentences. You need a noun, you need a verb, all of that. In English, the adjective goes in front of the noun. So it's the greenhouse. In Spanish, the adjective goes behind the noun. So it's the house green, the casa verde. Things like that you need to be aware of, okay? Every rule has this, but it's different. German. In America, we count 21. In German, they count 1 and 20. These are syntactic rules, okay? And then the last rule is known as a pragmatic rule. This is how we interpret messages and content. How do we get messages in everyday interaction? Okay? So, slang. Yo, dog, my old lady was tripping last night. Why'd you call me an animal and why did the lady keep falling down? That's not what I meant. It's slang, so it's completely different. How do you interpret that? Remember, in college you have what's called majors and minors. This is the disciplines you're going to study. Well, we have majors and minors in baseball. We have majors and minors in constellations. We have majors and minors in music. They all mean different things because of the way you're using them in that context, okay? The impact of language, of course, is naming an identity. Naming things gives it an identity. Those of you who grew up on a farm know this. Your parents told you not to name the pig, usually because he was going to end up being food. Once you give it a name, you give it an identity, you give it personality, you start forming an attachment to it. Okay? Now, divergence and convergence, if you remember the movie Mean Girls, if you have not watched it, you should watch it. It teaches you a lot about life. But Lindsay Lohan, not only did they change the way she looked, they changed the way she talked. That was convergence. Okay? She matched her communication to blend in. Alright? Divergence is when you make your communication different so you can stand out and be different. Okay? The key thing for this is that you are doing this on purpose. You are doing this on purpose to fit in or to stand out. Just like Lindsay Lohan did it in that movie. She purposely talked like them so she can be a part of their world. Now, this is different because if you live somewhere, eventually you do catch the lingo. You do catch the accents. But you're not doing that on purpose. Here it is. You are doing it on purpose to immediately fit in or to stand out. Okay? Also, power. There are some words that have such huge impact, such huge meanings. Faith, trust, loyalty, freedom. These are all words that have a lot of power assigned to them. It's because we assign it to it, though. Okay? And then, of course, politeness. You got to remember, please. Saying please can get you many, many things. A lot of people think I'll call and I'll be rude and they'll give me free stuff. No. Usually, if you are a lot more pleasant and a lot more polite, people will be more willing to help you. Now, here are some of the things you want to avoid. And that's fact, opinion, confusion. This is where people confuse their opinion as fact. All of you know people like this, and if you don't, it's probably you. But there are people out there that their opinion is the absolute fact, and it is not true. Fact inference is the same thing. Who is the source of the information? I have a friend now who, as soon as he hears something from somebody, oh, it's done, it's done. And it's not. It's just an opinion, but they believe the source of the information because it's coming from that person means it's absolute truth. Remember the water boy? Bobby Buffet? Mama's always right? That's an example of fact inference. He believed Mama because Mama was always right. Emotive language is when we get wrapped up in the emotional tone of the message. All of you have done this. You have a friend come up to you and they're like, I got to tell you something. And they're laughing so hard. Pretty soon you're laughing and you're like, what? Tell me, what? I don't know what's going on, but you're laughing. That's emotive language. You've gotten so wrapped up in the emotion, you have no idea what's going on. Also, remember language of responsibility. You need to accept responsibility for your language. You are the one who is giving it that much impact. You're reacting to it. This is why some people in our society, somebody can tell them a racial joke and they don't get offended because they don't assign the meaning to it. They don't see it as a negative. Whether other people do or not, that's different. But remember, we assign the meaning and the power to these words. If I take away the power, then it doesn't hurt. Words only hurt you if you allow them. Okay? So here are some of them. You guys can read these on your own. They're in your book. Gender is one thing that will always affect this. Remember, we talked about this. Women are supposed to be more passive, cooperative. Men are supposed to be aggressive and go-getters. Other things that will break into this is social philosophies. Oops, there we go. You know, to hear a woman say a bad word, that's not very ladylike. To hear a man say a bad word, there's nothing wrong with it because it's expected. Reasons for communicating, again, what is your reason? What is your motivation? If it's to conduct business, your motivation is to conduct business, to make money. Also, what is your conversation style? There are people who are very formal. There are people who are very informal. Hello, how do you do? Yo, what's up? Things like that, okay? Social philosophy, like I already talked about. Speaker orientation, we already talked about. Your occupation will have you communicate. Every job out there will have you do some sort of communication. I once had somebody argue with me and say, no, if you work in a mortuary, you're not communicating, and that's not true. You're talking to the family of the dead bodies. You're filling out reports. Remember, writing is still communicating. So there is not a job out there that does not require some form of communication. If you look at job interviews, at the bottom it says additional skills. They usually say Microsoft Office, communication skills. Because why? Communication skills are important. Whether you're writing or speaking, you need to communicate. Alright? We'll skip that part and then make sure you pay attention to this language and worldview. This is how we shape and reflect the language. It shapes the way we look at the world by the language we speak. You guys will be doing an assignment on this. Remember, we have now what's called weak sauce. It is kind of dumb, but some of you probably even say it. If you do, you should stop. Weak sauce. It is now part of our vocabulary because people are using it. If you look, it's part of the new dictionary. Weak sauce is when you bring something weak in. So you're bringing words that don't add up. People will say that, don't bring that weak sauce on the court. That means their game is not very good. They can't play basketball very good. People, you hear this now. I'm going to read you. Okay? They're going to talk smack. And they say that, don't bring that weak sauce in here. That means they're not able to read people very well. They're not able to talk trash. So this is the world we live in, okay? We use this, it reflects our culture. When you guys do these assignments, you guys will see a lot more examples. It is this discussion board, okay? But if we do not have a word for it in our culture, it is not part of our culture. We don't understand it. It is not something familiar to us. Remember, a long time ago, we did not have credit cards. Before money, we used to barter. I had 2 apples, you had 2 oranges. We would barter. We developed credit cards, and we developed words like charge it, plastic. So as technology changes and comes new, we develop new words to explain it. Okay? What's an app? We didn't have words like that before several years ago. Now we have that. Download the app. It's the application on your cell phone and stuff to make it a lot easier. But we didn't say apps, we said application. Okay? Swarm mine is another one. Have you ever looked at fish when they swim or birds when they're flying? It's like they're flying thinking at the same time. That's a swarm mind. So things like that. Now we have language because it's part of our culture. Okay? So make sure you do that discussion board soon. You guys will get more examples. But remember, if we do not have a word for it in English, it's not part of our culture. We don't understand it. It's either not acceptable or it's something we haven't thought of. Okay? All right. Thank you guys.